Hey guys, Kevin with Lowcountry Paver. I'm marketing director here with Steven, the VP of sales. We're here to talk about some pavers today.
All right, so as a manufacturer, we see the good, the bad, the ugly of all types of paver installations. There's a few mistakes to really avoid. And these are things that I preach when I go to the field and I talk to these new contractors, or I speak to guys that want to know and learn how to install pavers. It's like there's these key mistakes that they can really try to avoid that'll set them up for a great install and a successful business in the paver industry. And, I see a lot of guys, primarily the first area of focus is they don't dig a deep enough base. So they're not preparing the base appropriately. And when you short end and don't dig out enough, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because ultimately, if you're not bringing in enough base, if you're not excavating enough and having enough space to bring in the appropriate amount of base, you're not going to be able to compact that appropriately. And then that system, the paver, patio, driveway, pool deck, whatever it is, it will ultimately fail. And you're going to get callbacks. And that's going to hurt your reputation down the road. For sure.
So what does that look like if the base isn't deep enough? Like how does that materialize?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. So if you're a homeowner or a contractor, you're let's say it's all dependent on the type of job you're doing, right? So let's say you want to do a driveway. There's specifications for how much you should dig out that driveway and prepare the base appropriately according to that spec. And that's all information we can provide you as a manufacturer. We have those details. We have those specifications we can give you and make those recommendations to you. So, you want to, on a patio, you need at least 4 inches of a crushed base and then an inch of bedding sand or a bedding layer, depending on the style of base you're preparing. And then you also have to take into account the 2 3/8 inch typical paver thickness, which is what we offer, right? So altogether, if you have 4 inches of your crush base, an inch of sand, 2 3/8 of a paver, you're 7-8 inches deep that you have to excavate in order to appropriately get that patio to a true grade. And so that's where I see the biggest mistake is the guys are not excavating enough. They're not bringing in enough base, and their grades oftentimes are off. It's very important that you look at the fall of the yard and the fall of the patio itself, and you want to make sure the water is running away from the home, right? We don't want water in the house. Nobody wants water in the house. So you have to draw and run your lines appropriately so you know your grade throughout the whole project from end to end, from the house, from the high point to the low point. You want to make sure that you're grading appropriately.
So are we looking at if the base and the grading and all of that is done improperly, we're looking at pavers that are going to sink, they're going to fall out, they're just not going to stay in place, they're going to kind of fall apart. I hate seeing that. That's cringy.
You don't want waves in your patio, right? Nobody wants that. You want a nice flat patio, so when you put your furniture out there or you're hosting guests, no one's tripping over loose stones. So that's all dependent on your compacted base. So you need to prepare your base appropriately, make sure it's the correct thickness. You're going to compact it. Use your bedding layer, make sure you grade it out and screed it out appropriately. You lay your pavers down, and you should have a nice level base, and the pavers should be even. There should be no tripping hazard. There should be no undulation in the field of the pavers. You want your edges secured appropriately. You don't want them falling off. I've seen jobs where the edges weren't secured, the pavers are falling off. That's a tripping hazard. But it's also aesthetically, it just doesn't look good.
It's just like so many other things. You gotta do the prep work.
That's right.
And the install will go in. And just what other kind of issues do you see some people make when they're installing some pavers?
Yes. So a lot of it deals with the pattern too. So depending on the style of paver you choose, we have over a dozen different styles, right? Each one of those has a certain laying pattern you could do depending on the type of application, right? And also the style of paver utilizing. There's going to be different laying patterns. And what we run into, a lot of the guys when they first start out,
just laying them in a straight line.
Exactly.
Nice.
They're going to do the easiest pattern they can, and that what that typically is a running bomb pattern where they just lay it in a line, and then they don't run their lines appropriately. So you're going to have waves and there's going to be curvature, and nobody wants little squiggly lines, right? Like nobody wants that on a patio, right? So what I always coach guys to do, new contractors, people I'm meeting in the field that I haven't spoken to in the past, or, I really try and coach and talk to them about using the right patterns that break up those long lines.
Right.
It makes it easier on you as an installer, but it's also going to give you a better finished product.
It looks way better.
Yeah. I don't want squiggly lines on my patio. And when I go to a job site and I see those, their job's ruined in my eyes, right? And then there's there's driveways. When you do it on driveways, if you're running straight lines on a driveway, you're going to run into problems down the road, because as that car
separate,
as the car turns, you're pushing force and pushing the pavers away. So it's going to fail.
Even like a 10-foot line on a driveway where you have too many.
Just avoid it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah. Let's not do that.
Yeah. Do like a herringbone pattern, or, there's a number of modular patterns depending on the type of product. Again, we do a lot of 3-piece driveways. I love when they do a nice herringbone style on that and breaks up the lines consistently, and it's a much
get artistic with it.
Yeah, exactly. Much more finished product. So, overall too, when you're laying the pavers, what I've realized too is a lot of the newer guys, they just want to drop the paver and just keep going. So what I'm talking about is like when you're building the patio or the driveway, they just drop the paver in place. And what we coach and what everybody will tell you is to do the click and drop method, where actually click one paver against the next, and then you let it fall into place rather than just dropping. Because when you just drop it, it's going to displace the bedding layer underneath that. And then
you're going to have gaps.
You'll have gaps.
Yeah.
So then you'll have inconsistent sand when you go to infill it. And again, not only is it a structural nightmare, it just doesn't look good. Like you can tell that it wasn't finished correctly.
Right.
Yeah. So those are the big mistakes I see. And that's during the installation process. Another thing too, on the back end, as an installer, you want to be selling maintenance packages too, right? Or at least offer it. And what I mean by maintenance is the finished result. Always use a sand, and I always recommend a polymeric sand, but I see guys mess it up with the polymeric sand. You're going to keep ants, weeds at bay. It's a nice finished product. There's different color options. So design wise, there's much more flexibility, right? But not only that,
so don't use sandbox play sand?
No, definitely not recommended.
That doesn't work for this purpose at all?
So we always recommend, unless it's a permeable install, right? Then it's a different product altogether. But absolutely a polymeric style sand. It's going to lock the joint in tightly. It really adds structure, but it also, again, inhibits weeds. It looks better. The biggest mistake I see guys do is they sweep too much sand into the joint and they overfill the joints. So then it almost looks like grout lines. It looks like you mortared the pavers together.
It's not grass just grows in it.
Yeah, it's not supposed to look like that. So they overfill the joints and then they don't blow it off appropriately. So you have to make sure that you're blowing all the excess off before you activate it. Otherwise, it's going to feel like sandpaper. So you're going to have you'll have this poly sand stuck to the surface of the paver, and that's very hard to get off. You have to power wash it. You've got to get some hot water, scrub it as hard as you can, and
maybe even just replace that piece.
And we've seen people have to do that depending on the type of polymeric sand they use. Again, because some are Portland based, and that Portland is not going to come off.
Right.
So,
tell me about this this job we have going on right up the road here, about a mile away.
Yeah. So right now we're in Summerville, South Carolina. We have a project right now that we're working closely with an architect on. It's actually his personal residence. He designed a driveway using our hydroplank product. It's a 4x13, 110 millimeter linear plank style permeable product. In coastal communities like the Charleston area, Hilton Head, Savannah, Brunswick, St. Simons, Jacksonville, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, all along the coast, we're seeing a huge push in emphasis on permeable pavers.
Right.
A number of municipalities are requiring these types of products on new constructions and even remodels, right? So, and the reasoning behind that is, I mean, you're familiar with Charleston, it floods all the time, right?
all the time.
All the time. So the infrastructure is not equipped to handle all this development. There's nowhere for the water to go. And especially if we get a king tide, the streets are going to flood.
Yep.
So
yeah, like last night. I mean, I was out on the water last night. The tide was probably 2 feet higher than it should have been.
Yeah.
And God forbid it rains during that time. And you got about 3 feet of water on King Street.
Yeah. Don't ever leave your car down there. That's for sure, because you're going to be in trouble. But yeah, I mean, so the whole idea behind permeable pavers and the benefit is you're giving a place where this rainwater can go. When you're building a house, you're reducing the pervious surface that's already on site, right? Like you're taking a barren site, which was dirt and grass, which is a natural setting where the water can penetrate and permeate right into the
potentially not flood in Charleston.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to go through the soil. It'll join the water table and go through the natural water cycle. Well, now you build a 2,000, 3,000 square foot house, all that water is running off. So what the municipalities are requiring is you have to have a certain percentage of impervious to pervious coverage. Well, the benefit of permeable pavers from a developer, an owner, and a contractor standpoint is you can allow your customer to have more usable space. They can build a bigger house. If you're a developer, you can add another condo. You can add another vertical building.
Carriage house.
Yeah, or carriage house, exactly. Yeah. If you offset that building with permeable pavers. And now you have a place where you can park. We see people park their cars, golf carts, boats. They do it, as long as that area is built to spec and to code, like the water is going to drain. Now the rainwater that's coming off your house, coming from the yard and the streets, like that has somewhere to go. It's stored underneath. It can go through the cycle again.
And it does look, it
looks amazing.
Those driveways look amazing. That one we did in Hilton Head, right by the beach.
Yeah.
That one's one of my favorite color combos, that Charleston Pearl and the battery gray.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works perfect in those environments because the soils are already sandy. So they already drain well. But when you would typically bring in and run a concrete driveway, now all that water's going nowhere. That's an impervious surface, meaning the water can't get underneath. We bring in a permeable paver. Now it
goes straight back to the ocean.
That's right. Well, it drains appropriately. It does what it's supposed to do naturally. Yeah. So that's the big reason behind permeable pavers, and one of the biggest benefits I see, and why I think coastal communities, you'll see it more and more and more. Yeah. And this job in particular, it was just that. He's building a new home, and he was required to use permeable pavers. And from a style standpoint, our hydroplank is a much more modern look. And that's what he was trying to capture.
I'm very excited to see the final result on that, because the home looked very interesting, a completely different style than what we typically see in this area. We see a lot of that coastal style. So
very much not a Lowcountry style home. Yeah. It's beautiful, very modern, clean lines, darker in color. Beautiful. And we actually have two distinct driveways going in on that site, because he has his personal residence and he's got another house on site too. So we're using our hydro shed on one portion, which is our standard 4x8. And then on his primary driveway, which is where he'll drive up, that's our hydroplank.
Hydroplank.
Yeah. So,
it's gonna look
it'll
great.
Look fabulous. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
How do I mind these bits? For me, it just feels off.
What if I spill coffee on it?
I'm just.
What am I doing to make sure it stays personal brand does right now?
Yeah. So the best way to avoid any what we've already talked about, if you're building a backyard, I just love the business. Like you're going to have wine out there. You're going to have condiments, ketchup, mustard, whatever it might be. The best way to prevent any type of staining is on the front end. As far as after it's installed. Oh yeah. Put a sealer down.
Okay.
We carry SCK Sherbon sealers, over a dozen sealer types, depending on the type of look you want and what you want it to do. We have penetrating stain blocking sealers. We have antifungal sealers. Like they're horrible. We get a lot of shading, and sometimes that shading down here, we get a lot of like
mold and
So the antifungals, like you're not going to see that.
Okay.
And then not only that, with the certain types of sealers, like when it rains, it makes the pavers look wet. So we have sealers which we call wet look.
Yeah,
Which
I want to
mimic
make sure
look,
that like
and it's a very nice
they're
finish.
calling
It
me
brings
again.
the color out.
I'm just
It
gonna block
looks like
this
it's
number.
freshly rained on, like you wet it down all the time. I mean, if
I
you look
answered
online,
it.
you
I
see
answered it. They
contractors
just
when they
hung up.
show their jobs after it's done, they've sprayed it down because they want that color to pop. So these wet look sealers, not only do they protect you from staining,
make it look like that all the time.
it makes it look finished all the time, and it looks so nice. It looks so nice. It brings our colors out. You know, I always advocate, if you're a contractor, you should be offering that as a service. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't be telling your homeowner about the sealing process and offering that as an option.
I don't know.
Can you power wash
cracked
the
under
driveway
pressure?
with the sealer? I mean, are we power washing paver
so
driveways
stupid.
anyway?
Yeah.
What's kind of the
else you got?
maintenance from that?
What
Like,
else you got?
say I do get a stain on my driveway, it's unsealed or sealed. How do I get it off?
Great question.
don't
So
wanna be too mean
yes,
here.
you can power wash.
I feel like he's got a lot of ammunition against me because of the way I look already. So it's
Is
probably
you
not
might
fair
blast
battle.
some of the sand out. So if they use the polymeric sand, you should be all right depending on how much pressure you're using.
Just roast me.
If they
Just
use
roast
the
my
standard
mustache.
sand, you might see some of that sand pop out. But the beauty is you just come behind it and sweep.
It's not a long mustache.
With the
right?
staining
telling
in
me to
general,
roast
like
something
we
you
have
don't even have.
multi-purpose
It's like-
cleaners. So
it's
it's
a-
organic
it's just
staining.
a
We get a lot of leaf
sand on
litter
my
where the
lip.
leaf will
A
stain the
little bit.
pavers.
Like
sell
sandpaper.
cleaners.
Yeah,
That gets that
basically.
up. You know, so it just takes a little scrub brush, a little bit of water.
You know what you
mix
can
the
have?
cleaner up,
A paver
and go
driveway.
to town on it.
But I gotta start
and
touching
it's
the
going to
mic.
go away. Our sealer, it's not going
I
to
just
absorb the stain
enjoy
at all.
that.
So that's the whole benefit of the sealer. Is
You're used to it?
That
Yeah.
stain's going
Yeah.
to sit on the surface,
I
and
gotcha.
it just washes right off. So
Good thing we don't have
especially
an
with
HR
like a
department.
penetrating sealer, and
I asked
not
Cheryl.
only that, our sealers, most of the ones we sell are what we call breathable. In that, if there's any staining underneath, or like let's say you get efflorescence, that efflorescence will breathe to the surface, and you can wash it right
Clean
off.
it off.
What was the thing you said?
Okay.
You said something before. You told me to
So
roast.
seal your driveway.
Yeah, seal your driveway, seal your patio.
I'm gonna seal mine.
Seal every
And I
paver
had
you
some.
have because it just looks so awesome. And then you won't have to call us and say, hey, I have an oil stain or I have spilled wine. How do I get this up?
Yeah.
Because you're just going to be able to wipe it right up.
You're gonna spill wine.
Yeah,
What
you're
if
probably
instead of
going
my
to.
mom, we called like
Send this guy
contractor?
some tabby driveway photos, like we call like Jay or Ryan.
We get a lot of
Harling.
requests for that actually. So I'm all about it. So if anybody ever
you gonna
needs
say?
photos, please
don't
let
know.
us know because I love
Call
sharing
Ryan Harling.
pictures of
No, I'm
completed
not.
jobs.
Like, this is gonna be
pictures
gold
of
here.
products, anything you guys need to really sell the product. That's what we're here for.
Can I take one
But this
headphone off?
tabby product in particular, we've seen such an increase in demand of it coastally because I feel like a lot of people
Hey, you
are
there?
coming from different areas.
Hey,
and when
one
they
second,
move
one second.
down to the Lowcountry area. They really gravitate
grab some.
towards that
Let's
tabby
just-
look.
I already got
right?
Just
one.
want to embrace that.
Hey,
low
and they just want to
country.
embrace
I got a
it.
question
right?
for you.
So they really,
Let me ask
really
you,
love our
why
our-
do you use
our
us
finish
at
on the
Lowcountry
tabby
Paver,
product
man?
itself.
Why do you use it?
So
The tabby and the pavers is so much better than just tabby laying down tabby too, because you can actually
That's
walk on
it?
it with
That's
bare
the only
feet.
reason you
Yeah,
use
no.
us? Just because of
Yeah,
my color?
without
For sure.
cutting
We've done
feet up.
we've done it on pool decks, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
what do you tell a
I don't know
homeowner
that I would
that ever
ask
want
that
a
question.
like a concrete tabby finish
It's the
on a
best
pool
favors
deck?
you can get for your
If
money.
your
Best bang
hands,
for
your
buck.
feet,
Best bang for your buck?
Nope.
Okay.
Boom.
Obliterated.
Anything- anything else
They're
you
gone.
wanna add? Cut all up. So
The amount of time I spend barefoot
It's made right
around
here.
here
They say it's not
is, I mean,
It's a great
that's
state
why
of
I don't
move
like
here.
having shells.
That's
in
right.
my-
Local.
in my feet generally.
Yeah.
Keyword local.
people move here for
All right.
the outdoor
Hey, I'll
living,
call you in
right?
like 10 minutes.
That's
Thanks.
why we're
Yeah.
positioned so well as a manufacturer.
Hashtag
Catered
local.
towards that.
I thought it was gonna be
people are
funny.
coming from different markets.
Because usually
especially
the
up
answer is
north
like
or
some off
in the Midwest. They're coming
He probably
to
knew- he
enjoy
probably
the
had
weather
some
here,
inclination.
and they want to enjoy it outdoors. So we're
I
offering
don't know.
products that lets them build that outdoor living lifestyle that they envision for themselves when they come here.
My ears are getting hot.
It's like that's the priority of everybody I talk to. They're like,
Right.
we want an outdoor kitchen. We want a new pool deck or an outdoor patio, outdoor living area. We want furniture.
So like we're the base of that accomplishment, really realistically, right? Like we're the product that goes down so they can build.
I think we did
that.
those experiences.
That's right. I got it. Yeah, I'll do
So
that.
we can get a couple one-liners out of this
or the Midwest.
Yeah,
It's like, wow, like this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of funny.
Everybody moves for the weather.
They move for the
it's a
weather.
lifestyle. You have to take advantage of it.
And then it's like
you asking me
until
or
it's
I'm
August
asking
and
you?
September.
You can ask
110 and I can answer. But
Hey,
we'll take
are you
it.
sure?
We'll take it.
You have an answer? You got to
Yeah.
pick
your poison.
dust. You know,
Yeah.
when it's only
So,
80 degrees. And
you know our
100%
tagline is,
humidity.
It's a
lifestyle.
It is kind of funny
It's
to
a lifestyle.
gravitate towards that tabby.
What does that mean?
You
What
know,
does that
we
mean?
see it all over the place.
It means we're
used
building
to it being,
lifestyles
for the most part.
So
from
our
here,
products,
we see it all the time. But
people use
when people
them
from other
to
markets
create their
come, they're just
living
like,
spaces,
wow, like
their outdoor
we
living
love that
spaces.
look.
They're creating that
so we're
outdoor
doing it all over the
lifestyle.
place in Palmetto Bluff.
They want to be
anywhere in
outdoors,
Charleston,
enjoy their family,
Savannah, Hilton
build a
Head.
social setting, a social scene.
It's just tabby.
That's
That's what
lifestyle,
everybody
so
moves down here for.
Very, very excited about
they
that.
want the outdoors.
We love to see
They
it go down.
want to
It just
enjoy the
looks
weather.
so nice of a
They
product.
want to be
It looks
outdoors.
beautiful.
Our products build that for
You asking
them.
me a question?
So
Yeah, I'm
it's a
asking you a
lifestyle.
question.
Refers
We're
to
switching
the
roles
fact
here.
that
So,
our products contribute
if
to
you were a
them
paver,
making that
like you pick
lifestyle
any style,
a reality.
any color.
Truthfully,
What would you be?
Yeah.
It's like, and why?
we offer products that help homeowners and contractors build
this
that.
This could go multiple ways. Like
For
I could get
everyone.
I could get real deep with this one.
It's
or
a
not.
lifestyle.
It should just be really boring.
Or it could just be really boring.
We build
I-
lifestyles.
I would say
It's a good tagline.
You know,
We build
I'm going to go
lifestyles.
with
Should we
Charleston
change it?
Edgestone.
Okay.
Not only because it's my favorite paver that we offer,
But we don't act-
as
I mean-
far as like that large.
But we don't
format,
build. We just make.
we just contemporary
it.
style.
So
but it's
we
very
make
modern.
lifestyles.
It's kind of,
But not
Yeah.
really.
It's got the clean lines.
We are a lifestyle.
I like to try to maintain some clean lines. It looks
No.
good.
Again,
It's a little bit
my
larger
favorite paver
format
was
too,
so like
by
maybe
paper.
you
I'm not saying I look
because I'm
good,
very
but like I like to think that I look
basic.
good.
Yeah, you subconsciously want to be a little taller, maybe, so you just like the larger look of the product.
Yeah, maybe that's the that's
not
the
at all.
real driving. I feel like I think I regret picking Charleston Edgestone now. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
honest.
well, I
All
think we
right,
got
how about
enough.
you?
How about me?
What's your, I only know curse
Oh,
words in
man.
Spanish.
I feel like I'm very basic, to be honest. So.
Oh, okay. Plantation paver.
Plantation paver all the way.
All right,
4x8, herringbone. Like, it's just such a classic look. Like, it complements every style very well. It's timeless. Like, it's not going anywhere. So I feel like that's really my look. And if you throw some tabby in there, that's even better.
There you go.
So
Coastal basic.
Coastal classic, not basic. Coastal classic.
Classic.
Why did
Okay.
the concrete paver
It
go
looks
to
good though.
therapy?
I mean, that paver definitely. I've seen some of the tabby.
Why did the concrete
I believe it
paver
was
go to
Bonfire,
therapy?
Yeah.
on that
Why?
tabby.
Because
It
he
looked
was
really
tired
good.
of being
It does,
walked
like
all over.
especially I like tabby with the darker colors because it makes it look lighter.
Yeah.
Like it just adds some
Okay.
brightness to it, and it's
bit of
not as
contrast.
dark. You know, it's so funny. Colors are so dependent on the market you're in. Like as I get further inland, like so when I'm in Atlanta or Greenville or Charlotte,
Yeah.
they're using completely different colors.
You
than
see
the
more
coast.
of the brick influence come through.
Much more brick, the browns, the earthy tones. They're doing a lot of reds. I don't
Yep.
see many reds on the coast. It's a
Not
lot
at
of
all.
whites, lighters, charcoals, grays, and then with a splash of color. So
Right.
like our newest color, Storm Cloud, which actually isn't a new color. It's a color we brought back. We're selling a ton of it and people are requesting it so much because it's the best of both worlds, right? You have that white and charcoal, which people love, like our Charleston Pearl, but now it's got a splash of color in it. And
Yeah.
so you can really use it. There's so much versatility with the color. So,
I'll tell you, I like the new Sierra color.
Yeah.
That's a good, with the, you got some charcoal in there, you have some white, a little bit of pink. Very good contrast. And when it's laid out right, I was just at a job site yesterday, Lowcountry cobble. I think it was 3-piece Lowcountry cobble.
big driveway on Hilton Head.
Big driveway on Hilton Head. The color looked really good. Complemented his home very well.
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, that's one of our best and most requested colors as well, just because it goes well with every home. If you have
Yeah.
a brown home, I mean, there's homeowners who have bright green homes and they use that color and it complements it very well. So
Yeah.
that's always one of my highest recommended colors. When a homeowner or a contractor approaches me and asks for help on like guidance, New Sierra is usually the first one I throw their way just because I know it'll probably work.
Yeah.
So
It looks good.
yeah.
Thanks again, guys, for joining us. I'm Kevin, marketing director with Lowcountry Paver, and we have Steven here, the VP of sales for Lowcountry Paver. Make sure to follow us on socials and stay up to date with everything we have going on, all the content we have coming out, all our job sites. Anything that you want to learn about pavers, feel free to contact us. You can find us at lcpaver.com. Send us an email there, fill out a contact form, or you can give us a shout at 843-784-7104. So yeah, I appreciate it, guys. See you next time.